Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at RE Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sooner Nation podcast. We're going to run the gauntlet tonight. We've got Thunder basketball to talk about. We've got Oklahoma Sooner basketball to talk about. We've got football to talk about. There is a new tight end coach in Norman. I'm sure you've heard about that. Softball. Less than a month with softball. So like I said, we're going to be all over the place tonight. So glad that you're with us on this episode. And we're going to do something that I'm pretty sure I've never done before with this podcast. We're going to start by talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, not just as much to get it out of the way, but pretty significant what happened with Utah on Wednesday night. And then we've got so much with the Jason Witten talk, what happened to the men's basketball team in Starkville, Mississippi. And I want to talk a little bit of softball with you as well. So let's jump into this. There are regular season wins, and then there are moments that tell you exactly who a team is becoming. And for the Thunder, Wednesday night at the Paycom Center, I think was the second kind. The 129-125 overtime win over Utah, it's going to show up in the standings as just another January victory. Win number 32, by the way. Another home game, another big stat line for SGA. And if you stop there, if you only read the box score, I think you'll completely miss why this game mattered, because this wasn't about math. It was about identity. This was a stress test, and the Thunder passed it. So let's start with the obvious here. Oklahoma City played bad basketball for long stretches of this game. They shot a season worst 18% from three-point range. They blew a 20-point lead. They watched control slip through their fingers in real time. And for a moment, after Markkanen's putback with just 3 seconds left, it felt like one of those losses young teams wear for weeks. But, that's the moment where doubt creeps in. That's the moment where you start pressing, forcing shots, hunting threes, trying to erase mistakes instead of responding to them. That's the moment where good teams fade. And great teams, conversely, they reveal themselves. And SGA, he didn't fade. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He didn't hunt a miracle. He did what he always does. He got to a spot, 13 feet. He was balanced. He was calm. And he was automatic. The buzzer-beating mid-range jumper that sent this game into overtime, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic in the Steph Curry sense, but it was destined. And that's what makes it terrifying, I think, for the rest of the league. 46 points for SGA, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, another, quote, normal night for a player who has somehow turned elite into routine. But that shot wasn't about the stat line. That shot was about refusing to let one bad quarter define the entire night. Because make no mistake, this game had every excuse to go sideways. The Thunder had dominated early. They watched that dominance evaporate. They felt the energy swing. They felt the pressure. And instead of tightening up, they leaned into something far more sustainable than just hot shooting. They leaned into their discipline. And that shot was the clearest indicator yet that SGA isn't just a superstar. He's a closer. He understands moments. He understands patience. And maybe more importantly, he understands trust in his game, trust in his work, trust that he doesn't need to reinvent himself when the lights kind of get bright. But if Shai forced overtime, I think you got to look at Chet Holmgren. He's the dude who won the game. 30 seconds left in the overtime. You got a tie game, possession shrinking. SGA actually misses. And this is where championship habits show themselves. Instead of watching the ball, instead of hoping, instead of drifting to the perimeter, Holmgren went and took the moment. He attacks the glass, elevated through traffic, and finished a putback. Maybe a dunk, maybe just a slap the rim one, but whatever. It gave Oklahoma City the lead for good. And that won't be the highlight everyone remembers. Everyone's going to remember the clutch shot forced overtime, but this play, this moment, may be the most important play of the night because it wasn't finesse, it was growth. For all the talk about Chet Holmgren as a unicorn, about skill, spacing, shooting, that play was about physicality and timing and toughness against a Jazz front court that included some big guys like Yusuf Nurkic. Holmgren didn't avoid contact. He didn't float. He imposed himself. And the result, his stat line for the night, 23 points, 12 rebounds, winning time basketball. Those are all things that Oklahoma City needs from their big guys. Certainly, they're all things that matter. And here's why this one goes far beyond the final score. Almost nothing went right offensively from deep for Oklahoma City. Open looks, they didn't fall. Rhythm shots didn't fall. Shots this team usually makes, they just flat out didn't go in. And instead of stubbornly forcing plan A, the Thunder adjusted. They attacked the rim. They forced contact. They lived at the free throw line. 42 free throw attempts. 81% conversion rate. That's not luck, man. That is awareness. Great teams, they don't panic when plan A fails. They pivot. And Oklahoma City realized early in the fourth quarter that this just wasn't a shooting night. So they made it a different game. They slowed it down. They made it physical. They dragged Utah into a possession by possession grind, and they dared the Jazz to keep up. And they couldn't. And that's important because playoff basketball looks a lot more like this game than it does a random November blowout. Shots dry up in the playoffs. Legs get heavy. Whistles matter. Possessions shrink. And the Thunder didn't just survive that environment. They were able to control it. And let's talk about the mental side for just a minute. This was a Thunder team coming off of 2 straight losses. So you're looking at a team staring down its first 3-game skid in 2 years, facing a Jazz squad desperate to stop their own bleeding. So the situation was primed for frustration. Instead, Oklahoma City, they just showed patience. Jalen Williams quietly orchestrated the offense with 8 assists. He didn't force his scoring. He didn't hijack possessions. He made the right reads. The ball just didn't stick. That moment didn't overwhelm them. That's not talent. That is maturity. Yeah, sure, Utah's struggling. Yep, they've lost 5 straights. Everyone's aware of that. But anyone dismissing this win because of Utah's record doesn't understand the NBA grind. No one hands you overtime wins. You earn them. You take them. And Oklahoma City took this one with force. This wasn't a coronation. It wasn't a masterpiece. It was something valuable, though. It was proof. It was proof that the Thunder can win when the 3 isn't falling. It was proof that they can recover emotionally after blowing a big lead. Proof that their best player, he wants the ball with everything on the line. And that his teammates, they trust him implicitly. It was proof that their cornerstone can finish games with strength, not just skill. And at 31-7, the Thunder, they don't need moral victories. What they need is preparation. They need some battle scars. They need nights where nothing comes easy. And Wednesday gave them all of that. So when the playoffs do arrive, no one's going to care that Oklahoma City once shot 18% from 3-point range back in January. But the Thunder, they'll remember how they won this game. They'll remember the composure, the fight, the discipline. They'll remember that when everything felt like it was slipping away, one shot and one rebound, they were enough to take control back. That wasn't just a win, that was a warning. And this season, look, man, the league's starting to hear it. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and Facebook, Heartland Sports, both on both platforms. You listen to the Sooner Nation podcast. Jason Witten, Oklahoma's new tight ends coach. I guess we need to talk about that.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I guess I had some microphone issues there in that first segment. If you suffered through that with me, I apologize. But thanks for being here for the second segment. Oklahoma has a tight ends coach now. If you followed the reaction cycle on Thursday morning, you already know how this went. Oklahoma hires Jason Witten as its new tight ends coach. And immediately, the conversation split into two predictable camps. First came kind of the awe of the moment, then the name. There was the resume, the Hall of Fame credentials, 17 years in the NFL, one of the greatest tight ends the game has ever seen. And that's not a hyperbole, that's just truth. But then came skepticism. No college experience, no Power 4 coaching stops, no SEC, apprenticeship. A jump from Texas high school football straight into the most brutal conference in America. And both reactions make sense, but neither one actually explains why this hire happened. Because Jason Witten is not a schematic hire. He's not an analytics type hire, and he isn't even, at least primarily, a recruiting hire. Jason Witten is a cultural bet. And in the SEC, culture is currency. And Brent Venables didn't bring Jason Witten to Norman to reinvent Oklahoma's offense or install some cutting-edge tight end philosophy. This wasn't about playbooks or route trees. This was about something much harder to quantify and much harder to fake. It's about belief. Oklahoma is entering, in my opinion, the most unforgiving chapter of its modern history. The SEC doesn't care about logos. It doesn't care about tradition. It doesn't care about recruiting rankings from 3 years ago. It demands physicality. It demands discipline, resilience, and a willingness to endure discomfort week after week. Venables understands something fundamentally about that environment. Talent, it opens doors, but belief is what sustains programs. And Jason Witten's entire football life has been built on belief. And you talk about who he actually is beyond the name recognition. I mean, this is a dude who played 17 seasons in the NFL at one of the most physically punishing positions in the sport. 17. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the most explosive. He didn't win with flash, but he won with reliability. He caught 1,228 NFL passes. He gained over 13,000 yards. He scored 74 touchdowns. He finished second all-time among tight ends in receptions and receiving yards, trailing only Tony Gonzalez. That's not just greatness. That is durability. Longevity at that level, it's never accidental. It requires preparation. It requires discipline. It's an obsession with detail. And when Oklahoma talks about, kind of yearn for the dirt, Jason Witten, he's not learning that phrase. He lived that phrase for nearly 2 decades against the best defenders in the world every Sunday. And that's why the fit with Brent Venables matters so much. Venables doesn't chase celebrity assistants. He doesn't collect names just for optics. His program is built on accountability, physicality, and relentless attention to detail. That's not marketing language, it's the operating system. And when Witten's football DNA, it aligns with that ethos seamlessly. Tight ends under Jason Witten are not going to be, they're not going to be taught shortcuts. They're going to be taught leverage, hand placement, route discipline, blocking angles, film habits, preparation standards that translate far beyond Saturdays. And for a position group that has too often felt like an afterthought at Oklahoma in the recent years, that really, really matters, probably even more than we as fans realize. The Sooners haven't lacked athletes at tight end. They've lacked identity. Under Witten, that changes. There's something different about being coached by someone who has executed that exact rep on Sunday afternoons under pressure against Hall of Fame defenders. And when correction comes from that voice, it lands differently. Credibility accelerates development. It eliminates excuses. It demands buy-in. And that impact won't be confined just to one room. If you really want to understand why Oklahoma made this hire, look at Jason Witten's 5-year run as a head coach at Liberty Christian School in Argyle, Texas. He didn't just show up and win. He rebuilt a program. He established a 46-15 record. He's on back-to-back state championships in 2023 and 2024. So a struggling program turned into a standard bearer. That doesn't happen just because you know football. That happens because you know people. It requires leadership, communication, consistency, the ability to develop teenagers, not just as athletes, but as young men. That piece matters now more than it ever has because college football in 2026, it's chaotic. Look at what we're going through right now just with a week of the transfer portal. It reshapes rosters every year. NIL pressures complicate locker rooms. Recruiting literally never stops. And players need anchors. They need voices that they trust. Jason Witten's reputation as a, quote, big brother figure, it's not branding. It's something former teammates have echoed for decades. Players gravitate towards people who have been where they want to go, and they survived the climb. So that the presence, it's invaluable in a locker room that's still learning, honestly, how to live in the SEC. Now let's address the part that everyone whispers about, but pretends not to notice: recruiting. Witten's ties to North Texas, they're real. His name carries real weight. High school coaches watched him dominate Sundays, and then they turn around and he wins state titles on Fridays. So his presence, it opens doors. It opens the type of doors that Oklahoma wants to walk through. And yeah, the elephant in the room, let's talk about it. Cooper Witten, 5-star linebacker for the 2027 class. Hiring Jason Witten, obviously, it doesn't guarantee Oklahoma lands Cooper. Anyone telling you otherwise is just kind of selling some hype. But pretending it doesn't dramatically improve Oklahoma's positioning here, that would be equally dishonest. Program-changing recruits, they often choose comfort, trust, and relationships as much as they choose logos. And Oklahoma just placed itself squarely in the conversation for one of the most coveted defenders in the country without compromising its cultural identity. And that matters. But let's be honest here. There is a legitimate concern, and it shouldn't be brushed aside. Jason Witten has never coached college football. He's never navigated NCAA compliance. He's never lived inside the SEC recruiting calendar. He's never balanced portal evaluations, NIL conversations, and film study in a world where everything happens all at once. The jump from high school football, even championship level private school football, to Oklahoma in the SEC, it's a massive jump. And that's where this hire becomes less about Witten alone and more about the infrastructure that's going to be around him. Oklahoma anticipated this. Kevin Wilson's presence as a senior offensive analyst, it's not accidental. Wilson brings decades of college coaching experience, institutional knowledge, offensive expertise. Dude is a stabilizer. He's a guide, someone who understands the rhythm and the demands at this level. And Venables has built a staff designed to support, not to overwhelm, but to support first-time college coaches. Witten will not be asked to manage everything. He'll be asked to do what he does best: teach, mentor, and recruit. That is smart leadership. Look, the Joe John Finley era, it ended not because Oklahoma lacked effort, but because it lacked direction. The program needed a jolt, not just production, but a standard. And Jason Witten brings a standard. He brings expectations. He brings accountability. Dang, he brings lived proof of what it takes to survive at the highest level for nearly 2 decades. This hire is not about splashy headlines. It's about substance. Oklahoma's not going to win the SEC because it out schemes Georgia or out athletes Alabama overnight. That's not how this works. Sooners are going to win by developing tougher, smarter, more disciplined players who believe in the work. And Jason Witten embodies that belief. He's not the answer to every question that Oklahoma faces, but he's exactly the kind of hire that signals Oklahoma understands the moment it's in. And sometimes, especially as we're learning in this conference, that understanding, it's the most important first step of all. Oklahoma takes it on the chin in Starkville. Let's talk about what that game showed us.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
By the time Xavier Brown finally saw a jumper fall with about 8 minutes left in Starkville, the game, it was already gone. I mean, obviously not officially, not mathematically. Oklahoma still had possession, still had time, still had a path on paper, but man, emotionally, structurally, and physically, Wednesday night had already tipped too far in Mississippi State's direction. The Sooners weren't just trailing on the scoreboard, they were trailing on that word we use a lot, identity. They were trailing in it. And that's what makes, I think, this 72-53 loss more than just another road defeat. This wasn't a fluky night where shots refused to fall. This wasn't bad luck or bad timing. This was Oklahoma running headfirst into one of the oldest truths in college basketball, especially in this conference. When efficiency meets sustained physical pressure on the road, efficiency has to prove it can survive contact. For one half, Oklahoma did. For the second half, the Sooners didn't. Yeah, at halftime, the game's tied 27-27. It looked exactly like the kind of road effort Oklahoma wants to be known for. The Sooners had absorbed the energy inside Humphrey Coliseum. They handled Mississippi State's defensive pressure. They kept the game inside controlled margins. Shots weren't falling, but neither was panic. That's important because it showed growth. Oklahoma didn't unravel early. They didn't speed up. They didn't lose structure. They executed. But then came a stretch that defined the night and frankly exposed Oklahoma's current ceiling. Early in the second half, the Sooners nudged ahead 38-35. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional, and it felt like a moment where Oklahoma might grind their way through this. Instead, Mississippi State responded with a 14-1 run that didn't really feel like a run at all. It felt like a statement. The Bulldogs didn't suddenly get hot from three-point range. They didn't unveil some schematic wrinkle Oklahoma hadn't prepared for. There was no trickery here. They just simply leaned harder. They leaned into the paint. They leaned into the glass. They leaned into Oklahoma's ball handlers and dared them to survive possession after possession without relief. And Oklahoma couldn't do that. For more than 7 minutes, the Sooners didn't even make a field goal. 9 straight misses, 3 free throw attempts where they only made 1 of them. Silence long enough for Mississippi State to turn a competitive game into a controlled one. So this wasn't about shot luck. It was about shot quality eroding under pressure. Mississippi State finished the game shooting 42% from the field. Brutally, they were 13% from three-point range. So those aren't numbers that should keep any opponent alive. But the Bulldogs didn't need perimeter shooting because they owned the interior. They outscored Oklahoma 36-18 in the paint. They out-rebounded the Sooners 46-35. They scored 19 second-chance points. So that combination, it suffocates teams that are built on rhythm and efficiency. And at the center of all that was Josh Hubbard, a 30-point night. I mean, that's going to grab the headline there. And it should. It should. But the most damaging part of his performance wasn't how much he scored. It was kind of like, it was when he scored. I mean, during a brief stretch in the second half, Hubbard personally erased any remaining hope Oklahoma had of climbing back into this game. 12 points in just in the blink of an eye. Each bucket delivered with the confidence of a player who sensed vulnerability and attacked without hesitation. And that's what elite guards do at home. And once Oklahoma's interior resistance cracked, there was nothing left to slow him down. And part of that collapse, give the Bulldogs credit, because part of that collapse was structural. We've talked so much about Mohamed Wague, like good Mohamed Wague and bad Mohamed Wague. He's Oklahoma's primary interior anchor. But it was bad Wague, spent most of the night in foul trouble, fouled out just after like the 17 minutes of playing time total. In his absence, it wasn't just about size, it was about margin for error. And without Wague, Oklahoma had to overhelp defensively. Rotations were stretched thin. Guards were forced into rebounding responsibilities. They're not built to win. Every breakdown compounded the next. And Mississippi State recognized it immediately, and they never let Oklahoma recover. Ancor grabbed 14 rebounds for the Bulldogs. Jamarian Davis Fleming added 10 more. None of it was flashy, but all of it was devastating. Every miss felt like an invitation. Every loose ball turned into another possession for the Bulldogs. And every extra possession pushed Oklahoma further from the clean offensive flow that it depends on to survive. And that's the real issue I think that this game exposed. Oklahoma's offense, it's still fragile, especially when it's forced to operate without space, without pace, and without, honestly, a friendly whistle. The Sooners shot 30.9% from the field. They shot 15% from three-point range. Those are season lows across the board. But those numbers, they don't exist in a vacuum. They're the result of a team that couldn't create physical separation. And therefore, they couldn't create offensive separation. This isn't a condemnation. It's more of a diagnosis. Oklahoma's sitting at 11-4, 1-1 in conference play. So the season is far from derailed here. But Wednesday night was a reminder that in this conference, it doesn't reward aesthetic basketball. The SEC rewards durability. Mississippi State didn't beat Oklahoma by being prettier. They beat Oklahoma by being heavier, by being louder, by being more persistent. And that's the lesson that Oklahoma has to absorb rather quickly, because it's not going to get easier. Road games in this league, they're not solved with composure alone. They're solved with counters. When the paint disappears, you need scoring that survives contact. When the whistles tighten, you need rebounding that doesn't rely on positioning alone. And when that crowd swells, you need at least one player who can manufacture points without structure. On Wednesday night, Oklahoma had none of that. Xavier Brown and Tate Davis, they led the team 13 points each, but neither could bend the game once Mississippi State seized control. Again, this is not a criticism. This is an acknowledgement. Right now, Oklahoma still relies too heavily on flow. And flow is the first thing that the SEC takes away when you're playing on the road. So, yeah, this loss, it doesn't erase what Oklahoma has built. It clarifies what the Sooners still need. They didn't lose because Mississippi State shot lights out. Absolutely not. They lost because Mississippi State dictated where the game would be played, on the block, on the boards, and on the bodies. And that, when that happened, Oklahoma didn't have an answer. Not a fatal flaw, but it is a warning. And again, you're playing basketball in a conference that doesn't let you ignore warnings for very long. Hey, do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed here to the Sooner Nation podcast. So thankful that you're here with us. So thankful you take the journey every week. You jump on this, wherever you're finding us, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you get us. Man, do me a huge favor and just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps out so much in terms of their algorithms and so forth, getting us exposure and getting us out there. So appreciate you. We got to talk softball. I know football, transfer portal, it's all going to, man, we're going to have a big transfer portal episode, but softball is less than a month away. And I think a lot of Sooner Nation, including this guy right here, pretty excited. So there are programs that chase championships.
Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game is Saturday night. Jordan Love and the Packers take on Caleb Williams and the Bears. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game.
That's going to be caught for the touchdown.
NFC North rivals square off in the latest chapter of the NFL's oldest feud. The Packers and Bears in Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Only on Prime. Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
And then there are programs that define what chasing even looks like. As we get ready for the 2026 college softball season, as it approaches, Oklahoma remains firmly in that second category. The Sooners are not entering this season as the defending national champions, which is just weird. They're not riding the adrenaline of a title parade or the glow of a near perfect year. Instead, they're arriving into 2026 carrying something far more durable. They carry proof that their dominance was never fragile, proof that their standard survives change, proof that even when a dynasty pauses, the foundation underneath it doesn't crack. And that distinction matters, especially right now, because after that 2025 season that tested Oklahoma in ways that it hasn't been tested in nearly a decade, Patty Gasso's program hasn't emerged shaken or searching. They've emerged sharpened. The transition is complete. The lessons are absorbed. This roster reflects a program that didn't react emotionally, but recalibrated with purpose. Oklahoma does not enter 2026 trying to rediscover itself. The Sooners enter knowing exactly who they are. One of the most misunderstood takeaways from the last season was the idea that Oklahoma somehow slipped, that the absence of a trophy meant the standard had softened. That couldn't be further from the truth. This is still the sports measuring stick, not because of what happened last June, but because no other program has sustained excellence the way Oklahoma has. 8 national championships, 4 consecutive titles from 2021 to 2024, a winning streak that rewrote what dominance looked like in modern softball. But more than anything else, Oklahoma has built something harder to disrupt. They've built infrastructure, financial investment, player development, cultural clarity. Those things aren't erased by one season. Even in a year that ended before Championship Thursday in Oklahoma City, the Sooners were still the reference point, still the program everyone compared themselves to, still the benchmark that others chased. That's how you know that the standard exists, independently of the scoreboard. And as we head into 2026, that hasn't changed. If the dynasty years were about overwhelming superiority, then 2025 was about adaptability. The move into the SEC wasn't just a change in geography. It was a weekly stress test. Every series felt like postseason softball. Every opponent had the arms, the athletes, and the confidence to punish mistakes. There were no breathers. There were no soft weekends, no room to experiment without consequence. At the same time, Oklahoma fielded one of the youngest rosters in the country. Leadership had to be forged in real time. Roles evolved under pressure. Consistency became something earned instead of something that was assumed. And yet, through all of that, the Sooners still won the SEC regular season title in their very first year in the league. They still hosted the postseason play. They still reached the Women's College World Series semifinals for the 9th straight season. All of that matters because what 2025 proved wasn't that Oklahoma is unbeatable. It proved that Oklahoma is resilient. The Sooners learned how to win without overwhelming margins. They learned how to survive when the long ball wasn't a bailout. They learned how to handle hostile environments, tight games, and unfamiliar expectations. Those lessons don't disappear in the offseason, they compound. And that's where this 2026 roster tells the real story. The most telling thing about Oklahoma's outlook isn't star power, it's precision. This wasn't like change just for the sake of change. It was reflection followed by targeted reinforcement. The returning core, it provides continuity and edge. Players like Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering, they don't just bring production, they bring memory. They remember what last season demanded. They understand what it took to survive it. Up the middle, experience stabilizes a defense that must be airtight in SEC play. The identity of Oklahoma softball, aggressive, fearless, fundamentally sound, it all remains intact. But the biggest shift happened in the circle. After experiencing the limits of pitching depth and high leverage moments last season, Oklahoma attacked the portal with intent. Not for headlines, not for optics, but for options. Multiple arms capable of handling pressure. Multiple paths through a weekend. Multiple answers when a game tightens late. That depth changes everything. It changes how Patagasso manages innings. It changes matchups. It changes the postseason math. And just as importantly, it changes confidence. No pitcher has to carry the entire load. No moment feels like a last resort. That's how championship runs survive May and June. And in the nation's top-ranked recruiting class, again, and the message is unmistakable. Oklahoma didn't just reload talent, it reinforced competition. Freshmen, they won't be asked to wait. Veterans won't be allowed to coast. Every inning that you get to play will be an inning that you earn. And that's always been the program's edge. Now, make no mistake here, the SEC doesn't get easier in year 2 for the Sooners. Texas remains, the looming benchmark here. Tennessee, Alabama, others, they're going to be deeper, louder, and more confident after watching Oklahoma navigate this league successfully. Every road series is still going to feel like the month of May. But the difference is this. Oklahoma knows exactly what that grind demands. The 2026 roster is built with SEC durability in mind, deeper pitching, tougher at-bats, and a composure that only comes from surviving the fire that's, they've been through it once already. This isn't a team learning how to manage pressure. It's a team that expects pressure. And expectation matters when margins tighten. There will be teams entering 2026 with momentum. There will be teams with preseason buzz. There will be teams with more recent trophies. Hook them, right? But no program enters the season with Oklahoma's combination of proof, infrastructure, and intent. The Sooners, they've changed conferences. They've replaced icons. They've weathered the end of a historic run, and still they stand positioned at the point to contend here in the highest level of competition. They continue to produce professionals. They continue to invest in development. They continue to demand excellence as a baseline, not as a goal. And that's why Oklahoma remains the standard here, not because of what it won yesterday, but because of how it prepares for tomorrow. And as the 2026 season begins next month, the real question isn't whether Oklahoma can reclaim the throne. It's whether anyone else is built to keep the Sooners from that. And with that, we're going to put a bow on this episode. Thanks for being here for the Sooner Nation podcast. Seriously, genuinely, honestly, thank you for tuning in, for sticking with us, and for being a part of this community, whether you're listening on the drive, at home, late at night, breaking down Oklahoma sports the same way we do. Your support really does matter more than you know. And let me tell you this. I talked about social media, Instagram, Facebook. If you want to go deeper in our previews for softball, check out our 2026 preview content on our Facebook subscription page. We currently have right now 5 preview articles. 6 is coming very soon, but we have 5 articles published exclusively to that platform. Softball, how it remains their measuring stick entering 2026. Look back at the 2025 campaign, why the Sooners are built to reclaim the throne in 2026. Those are all there right now, plus more. Go check it out. We'll be back soon with more Sooner Nation podcasts. Have a great weekend, everybody. Boomer Sooner.
But I would walk 500